Q&A or this press conference, you can go ahead and note that in the chat as well. Again, we'll open up questions for Dr. McKnight towards the beginning of the press conference, hold that Q&A, and then proceed with the rest of the press conference, and then we'll have questions following that as well. Thanks again.
Recording in progress.
Another friendly reminder for reporters just joining us, if you still need permission to record, go ahead and note that in the chat. If you have any questions, you can note that in the chat as well. We're open up for questions for Dr. McKnight first, and then we'll follow through with the rest of the press conference after that, and then open up again for additional questions as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, Jordan, I've got 12 o'clock. We can go and get started.
Of course. Lucia, we're ready for the countdown. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Give us one moment and we'll do the countdown. We might be having some trouble with the streaming today, but we will be recording, so we can post the recording to our Facebook and YouTube pages after the meeting, if that's okay with everybody.
Okay, that's great. You can still give us a countdown, Lucia. That way we can just start all together. Thank you so much.
All right, we are live in 4, 3, 2, 1.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Montgomery County Council President Gabe Albornoz, and it is a pleasure to join all of you as we resume our weekly media briefings. Today, we're joined by two guests. First, Dr. Monifa McKnight, the Superintendent of Montgomery County Public Schools, and Mr. Sean O'Donnell from our Public Health team. As Jordan mentioned, what we will be doing this afternoon is first hearing from Dr. McKnight. We will then pause and open it up for Q&A. Specific to Dr. McKnight and any questions that cross over to the council relative to MCPS. And after that, Dr. McKnight will move on as she has a very busy day today, and I will resume the press conference talking about other news and notes for the council this week, and then we will give Mr. O'Donnell the opportunity to provide an update on all things related to public health. But it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. McKnight, who is obviously no stranger to these parts, but I just want to express my deepest appreciation to her, Board of Education, as well as all of the teachers, administrators, and support staff, the families and the students themselves for their hard work this last year to help ensure that we established as seamless a transition as possible for the beginning of the school year. I had the great pleasure of joining Dr. McKnight at the official opening reception and ceremony at the new beautiful Harriet Tubman Elementary School, which Dr. McKnight will speak to in her remarks. And I was just struck by the energy, the excitement, the enthusiasm for the beginning of a school year. As we know, everyone associated with MCPS has been through the ringer and back and has been challenged in ways that none of us could have possibly imagined just a few years ago. But the council remains totally and completely committed to help ensure that we provide support both in our policies, but also in our budget allocation to everything that we need to ensure a successful school year. And with that, Dr. McKnight, I will turn it over to you to make some opening comments and share anything that you would like to share that you believe is relevant now that we are entering into a little over the second week of the beginning of the school year.
Thank you so much, Council President Albornoz. I appreciate you inviting me here for this conversation today. And I actually want to begin by thanking you for actually being there with us as we opened up just 2 weeks ago. As you mentioned, you joined us at the new Harriet R. Tubman Elementary School. And I remember when you were there with us, you spoke about the community's hard work and what it took to build that school. And it means, and essentially what it means for our students to really have a quality space to learn. And I really appreciate you and the support from Montgomery County Public Schools as you always are there and supporting us and supporting our children. So I'll say that we are off to a first great 2 weeks of school. The Board of Education members and I have been very busy out visiting schools and talking with students and staff. I even had an opportunity to ride a bus with middle schoolers from a high school and was able to stop at their bus stops and engage in conversation with them about how their first few days of school was going. And also had a chance, which I'm so grateful for, to talk with some parents who were at the bus stop there with their children. And I was so happy to see that because I know oftentimes we do see parents at the bus stop for our elementary students, but it just reminded me of how important it is for parents to stay engaged at all levels. And so again, it was, many of them were surprised to see me getting off of the bus, but I was even more happy to see them there with the children waiting for them to be picked up by the bus. And it just really spoke to how every aspect of school operations is really important. And for me to be able to see it and Board of Education members being able to see it at the system level work at the granular level daily, I will tell you there was nothing else like it. To spend time with our bus driver, Mr. Richard Rogers, who was driving us around and talking with us about his experience as a bus driver and seeing the community really talk about how great it was to have their bus driver with them over the years. It was just amazing. Just spoke to the strength of our community. But as I talk about how we start out, I saw a lot of work in real time, really focused on equitable teaching and learning. And I'm proud to say that I saw that work starting on the first day. Now, we started out on the first day at Rockville High School. The first day at Rockville was devoted to wellness activities and being able to visit those classrooms. I saw exciting and intentional instruction, deep engagement in the classrooms, and students and staff really working together to be energized for the new school year. At Rockville that day, their theme was, "We're fired up to start the year." And that's exactly what I saw and Board of Education members saw and staff saw as we went around, visited the classrooms, spoke with all staff who had a part in getting students and staff ready for the school year. I also had a chance to see our social emotional curriculum work at Cannon Road Elementary School, helping our students transition from a busy commute and the ability to be able to settle and focus on learning in the classroom. And I sat on the carpet with them and really had a chance to see how teachers are able to get their students into really mindful positions to start the day. And it was just wonderful to see it and see our youngest learners starting their day, getting refreshed and just getting into the space. So I really enjoyed seeing that. I've seen staff building relationships with students, in circles, as I said, on the carpets. I've also seen staff really connecting with one another and them building spaces within the schools, the staff for them to be able to have a space to check in with one another and to just get a little mental break throughout the day as they go and support our students. And so every bit of the work that we were able to see, from the buses running to our technical systems to programs underway in the classroom, it really, to me, spoke to the hopeful potential of us having an extremely successful school year. And it reminds me of our theme that we began this year with, and that's all together now for our students. And I do believe that we have to continue to recommit to that theme to start this year and throughout this year to achieve the best and to help our students find success as we bound together collectively to embrace this endeavor of providing our students with a successful education here in Montgomery County Public Schools. So this year, I invite our Montgomery County Public Schools community to continue to renew that commitment and working with the school system, working with your local schools and the staff at those schools, connecting with your teachers so that we can all, again, provide the best opportunity for our students. So I'll share just a few updates about opening up the year. We opened up our new elementary school in Gaithersburg. That's our 210th school in Montgomery County, Harriet R. Tubman Elementary School. And it opened with pre-kindergarten students serving students through grade 4. They will have 5th grade starting next year. So that was an opportunity for them just to get started with, again, kindergarten through 4th to start the year. At that school, when we go, I think about a name that they call themselves, the staff there, and they call themselves Team Tubman. And they really want the vision of that school to become successful for every student who walks through the door. And I saw that from the time we did the ribbon cutting and just seeing the passion and the excitement from every teacher and every staff member that was there, already showing a deep commitment to what it is that they want to accomplish. They are truly embracing their namesake is what I'll say. And, you know, they really are focused on teaching their students about the value of every person and how that's really important as they come together as a community. I'll give you another example. That entire Team Tubman crew, on the Sunday before pre-service, they took a field trip to the National African American Museum in Washington, D.C. And they did that purposely because they wanted to be able to have a team building exercise to remind them that every one of their children are coming from many different backgrounds and often require very specific attention. And they want to be successful in doing that. And so that's an example of how committed they are to fulfilling the mission of that school. But I want to congratulate them on really taking that personal lens to their work. I'll also share with you where we are with staffing. There was a lot of conversations and a lot of interviews leading up to the start of the school year. But on the matter of staffing, we are still at 99% staff at the beginning of the school year. And it did take a great deal and a lot of people to make that happen. We're continuing to look for the new and brightest recruits out there to join the MCPS family. And we're also continuing to have our job fairs. Although we were staffing and really had a really aggressive timeline to make sure we were staffed for the start of the year, that staffing process really never ends. And actually, we had at a recent job fair that we held at Gaithersburg High School, we actually didn't just have staffing specialists there to answer questions, but we had a table with staff from at least 50 different schools. And I thought that was so innovative in terms of our human resources and recruitment team coming together, because they wanted to make sure that there were people who are directly in these jobs right now who could speak to those who are interested about the work that they're doing and be able to specifically talk about their experiences. I highlight that because in many interviews over the summer, many asked the question, what have you done that does contribute to the successfulness of being able to hire people to get this year started? And that's just one example of many creative ways that our teams come together to really connect with those who are interested in joining us as future staff members. So I also say, you know, anyone who's still interested, you can apply on the spot, leave a resume with us. We will follow up and engage you in the process. So we are continuing to hire. To be even more specific though, as of today, we still do have 161 open full-time teaching positions, 34 part-time teaching positions. And of course, I think our long-term substitutes who are there and supporting us in making sure that our students are covered. And we also have about 30 bus driver positions that are opening, that are still open at this point. These numbers do change daily, and that's why I say we recruit all year long. And it's also important to note that we are up in enrollment this year. We have returned to pre-pandemic numbers for our student enrollment and beyond. We're over 161,000 students in the system right now. And to me, that's great news. So as we're welcoming our students back and families are continuing to enroll, then that means that every time a child enrolls, that increases the number of staff then that we have to allocate to meet those students' needs. So we're continuing, as I said, to work through the challenges that we do have and continuing to hire and onboard staff to care for our students. I'll also provide another update around where we are with our wellness programs and our wellness centers. I highlight my 3 priorities that we focus on in the system that really are strategic focused on on 3 areas particularly. And one is rebuilding trust and building trust with student, staff, and the community. The second, focusing on mental health and wellness for students and staff. And the third, returning to equitable teaching and learning. And that second priority, all about student health and wellness and staff. This year, we've had a continued robust partnership with the Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services. As a matter of fact, they came and co-presented with us last week at our board meeting, which is our first board meeting to the start to the school year. And that strong support from our county leadership, and that includes President Albornoz, and working closely with the county government, really means that we're going to have health and wellness centers in all of our high schools, and we were able to provide that update. So those are some very critical supports that we believe are necessary to provide wraparound support for our students and their families, because we know that our students don't operate alone, but need the support of their family getting resources in different ways to help them. So we're excited about that initiative. And, our students must be well and healthy and feel psychologically safe in order to learn their best. So that's why that priority stands out. And we're going to continue to put all services in place to make sure we are successful there. So I've said this before, but I also want to repeat our thought that our students are our priority. We embrace the fantastic opportunities that we want to be available to every student, and we plan to be available to every student in every school in Montgomery County. And so to everyone in our community, my challenge is this, and I challenge us to do this: be a partner in the work. Together, we can ensure that tomorrow's promise is brighter, and we ensure that by making sure that we are communicating and working together for the benefit of our students. So thank you so much, Council President Albornoz, and now end there.
Thank you so much, Dr. McKnight. And I'm also pleased to announce that at tomorrow's public health briefing, we will be joined by the new representative from Montgomery County Public Schools who is focusing on public health matters. Dr. McKnight, could you describe a little bit more, once again, that position and why it's important as a link between the county's public health team and MCPS?
Absolutely. So that position is our MCPS medical officer position, and the staff member who serves in that position is our Assistant Chief, Dr. Patricia Kapunen. She joined us this year, and we are thrilled to have her here. She is a conduit to constantly make sure we have that connection with the Department of Health and Human Services, but also a conduit to make sure that we have a connection with the Maryland State Department of Education on all protocols related to health, and the Maryland Department of Education. And her coming on board and being able to have the medical background, particularly around children, has been very helpful in our conversations. And she works very closely with Dr. Bridges, Dr. Kroll as well, and making sure that all protocol and requirements coming from the state are implemented consistently in our school system as well as within our county. So the two fit nicely together on behalf of our children.
Well said, and we look forward to seeing Dr. Kapunen tomorrow during our session. We'll pause here and answer any questions from the media. Jordan, I'll turn it over to you to help facilitate this part.
Great, thank you so much. We have some questions rolling in. Just to let you guys know, these are questions pertaining to Dr. McKnight's remarks, and then we'll open it up again later for more questions. Up first, we have Kate Ryan from WTOP. Good afternoon, Kate.
Hey, good afternoon. Dr. McKnight, I did have a question. You mentioned the number of open positions you have right now. How many of those are for special educators? And are you able to commit and to say whether or not you can keep to your commitment to have a cap of 32 students in every class?
So thank you, Kate, for that question. So I'm going to say the Board of Education and I absolutely commit to making sure that our class size limits are honored, because we've acknowledged that that is a part of the learning environment, and we want to make sure that our students can get that differentiated and individual support that they need in the classroom. And so we're going to honor that commitment, absolutely. In regards to the full vacancies out of the 161 last check, that could have changed today, but we were at around 98 special education teacher positions.
Okay.
Still
And again, you've said you'll commit to, but I am hearing anecdotally, I don't have numbers, that some of these classes are huge. That's the word that was used. Are there any classes that are above 32 right now?
So we have not assigned any classes that are beyond our class size limits. I can't speak to exactly what you're hearing, Kate. There are a number of class size limits that we have that differentiate when it comes down to grade level. Like some of the class size limits are very different in elementary than secondary. I was actually at a school last week, and I remember there were a couple of PE classes that were there and they were doing an activity together. But again, they were separate classes. So there could be a number of things that play into, why that may be the case. But in terms of class limits, I can say to you, we are honoring class size limits.
And a quick follow-up, you mentioned being on the bus. My understanding is that this, late in the summer, the school system asked for an emergency purchase for diesel buses. When my understanding was the past transportation director had talked about, making sure that you were fully electric. And what is the status of of Todd Watkins?
So I won't speak on any personnel issues specifically. As you know, we do have a new transportation director, Mr. Cilians, who's off to a great start here in Montgomery County Public Schools. And so we do welcome him. We do keep our commitment to make sure that we are preparing to become an electric school bus fleet in Montgomery County. But as you know, we will have to phase that in. As of now, we have the largest number of electric buses in the state. And so we are leading that effort, and I'm very proud that we are, but it is going to be a process in which we phase in before we can become fully electric.
Okay, and understanding that you can't mention specific personnel issues, at the time Mr. Watkins was put on leave, there was a discussion of some investigation about financial improprieties related to transportation. At the time, the school district said they would have information within a few weeks. We haven't heard anything. Can you update us on what this investigation is showing?
So we will share information once everything is done. As you know, MCPS was not conducting an investigation independently. And so, of course, this will have to be information that we share along with others that were involved in that process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you so much. Just a friendly reminder to all reporters, Dr. McKnight does have other meetings following this briefing. So if we can keep our questions limited, that would be great. Up next, we have Darcy Spencer from NBC4. Good afternoon, Darcy.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for taking my question. Dr. McKnight, we've been reporting about test scores that have been released in different school districts in the area. There were some national numbers that came out last week. DC released Park scores. Late last week, Prince George's County released the benchmark assessments that showed a large number of students aren't meeting expectations. We haven't seen any numbers come out from Montgomery County Education just yet, but what can you tell us as far as how things are looking? I'm sure you have an idea of how kids are doing. And when do you expect some assessments to come out and some data to come out as far as MCPS students?
Yes. So Darcy, what we have tried to do is be very transparent about our students and their learning and the impact of that over this past year. We try not to wait until one whole cumulative report is done for us to get an assessment of how our students are doing. We actually ended last year in sharing specifically based on some internal measures that we had with MAP and our other internal measures, how our students were doing. And we saw that there was some impact with literacy in our elementary grades, particularly around second and third. And we talked about really needing to have a focus on mathematics in secondary, middle and high school. And so we've been sharing that data just so that we're not, we're sharing it so that you understand what it is that we're focusing on and why we're focusing on that as a result of what we've learned about our students and their learning from the pandemic. And we're going to continue to do so. In terms of when we will next share information with you in terms of assessments, we always have a fall release around October when we have assessment data back in from our students. And so we will do as we've always done, which is share information at our Board of Education meeting about what those assessments are and how they align with some of the data that you're seeing that was just nationally released. because I know that is, a point that everyone's looking at. How are our students doing nationally as a result of the pandemic? And so again, that information just came out. And so we'll be able to share internally in MCPS with our internal measures, how we're doing. And then that will set a good conversation for what are we looking at locally and then in comparative to other districts and other students.
Well, how do you think the kids are doing as far as the recovery from the pandemic? What's your assessment generally?
So like I said earlier, we definitely see that our current second and third graders, we have some work there to do with them in terms of literacy. They were impacted by the pandemic, of course, when they were in kindergarten and first grades, and we know that those are foundational years for them. And so really focusing in on literacy support within those grades have been where we saw we needed to invest a lot of our time and attention and focus. And mathematics internally in our middle schools across the board, and in our high schools has also, we've seen more of a dip in math particularly. So those are the things that we've learned over the data that we've been able to assess over the past year and starting this year. And I also say, Darcy, what we have been doing is looking at the specific grade levels in those areas of literacy for elementary and mathematics secondarily, and really focusing on how we're targeting some of the support that we're providing, like for instance, our tutoring services, but then also really focusing on how we're investing the time and attention on that first instruction in the classroom for all of the students. We made investments like our staff development teachers being reinstated full-time this year. And that was to really make sure that we're providing our teachers with that time, space, and support around professional development to really deal with some of the variants that we're seeing with our students and their learning as a result of the pandemic.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Up next, we have Nicole Ashbury from the Washington Post. Good afternoon, Nicole.
Hi, Dr. McKnight. Thank you so much for taking time out. Really quick, I just was going to ask, would you mind, I know we're getting an update from the Chief Medical Officer a little bit tomorrow, but would you mind kind of speaking to a little bit, if any impact COVID might be having on school operations? What kind of posture is the school system at sort of with the ongoing pandemic?
Yes, so we are continuing to monitor. I mean, I talked this year about us opening up the school year not under the same cloud that existed over the past 2 years, but COVID is still here, and we know that it is still transmissible. And so we still are using our reporting systems to be able to monitor, who is identifying themselves as being COVID positive and what that looks like. It in no way has shaped or impacted us being able to operate, which I am so grateful and glad to be able to report, but it is something that we are monitoring. I shared an email with staff members earlier today, just really focusing on in our efforts to be able to monitor. We're going to continue to look at how staff are being impacted, give them the support that they need so that they can take care of themselves and get back to work in a better state. And successful programs like our long-term substitute programs or permanent substitutes who've signed up to be able to be in those schools where we see more of an impact because they're familiar with the students and the staff. Those things still continue to be in place so that if we see that our operations are impacted, we can fall back on some of those strong systems that we've learned over the past year to help us still be able to operate under those circumstances.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Up next, we have one more question. We have time for one more question for Dr. McKnight, everybody. That will be Kelly Lynn with WJLA. Good afternoon, Kelly. How are you?
Oh, good afternoon. Thank you very much for taking my question. Dr. McKnight, I wanted to talk to you about the Montgomery County Board of Education and President Albornoz. If you have an opinion on this, that's fine too. But there was a $2.37 million payment given to the Kid Museum, which offers programming for MCPS, no bids at all. It was not competitive, and they were they had the lowest bid. It was not a competitive process though, and so I'm wondering, what is your opinion about this, and why you think, if you do you think that this is a suitable way to approach this? Are there any plans to change the approach to the bidding process in the future? And what is your opinion of what the Kid Museum is offering MCPS?
Sure. So very interesting. We just had this conversation, and this very question in some ways could have been stated at our last board meeting on last Thursday, where we addressed this. And we addressed it through looking at this as a single source, because we wanted to have a continuation of services that we've already been able to provide to our students over the last couple of years. We've had a very close relationship with the Kid Museum, serving thousands, hundreds of thousands of our students, actually. And to be able to provide those services so that many of our students could be exposed, we wanted to be able to continue that. And why is that important? Well, we've had so much disruption in so many different ways. We want to be able to continue services for our students that we found to be successful. And the Kid Museum is one. Now, that does not mean that in any way we would not continue with the RFP process in the future. Of course, at the Board of Education meeting, we actually mentioned this, that, as we continue to expand services, we will continue to look at a variety of different vendors who are able to provide services. But for right now, this year, particularly after coming out of 2 very disruptive years, there have been some proven programs that have been successful with our students. And so really this was around using a single source to provide continuity of services. And you asked what types of services they provide. This week, I believe it's on Wednesday evening, they're going to be providing a special session really focusing in on Latinx contributions to to different systems of coding and being able to use Latinx experience in maker spaces for our students. And it's that type of tailored service that I think really is important to our community and speaks to a partner who knows the community, has worked with our students and our families and our community over a period of time, who are able to really bring programs in that speak to a need in a very diverse and differentiated way for our students. So thank you for raising that question. I do invite you to go back and look at that conversation. It was a very transparent conversation that we had at our last board meeting on this past Thursday when we discussed that consent item specifically.
I'll just mention, I agree with everything that Dr. McKnight just said, and both this council and the previous, and actually the council before that, have been extraordinarily supportive of the Kid Museum. They do have a larger capacity of programming than many of our other providers currently, and are able to uniquely take to scale a number of the different direct services that they provide in the way that some organizations are not. And so I think it makes full sense, particularly in light of the crisis that we see on the ground and the need for us to continue to support the social and emotional well-being, and the fact that STEM programming in particular helps unlock areas of math which, as Dr. McKnight noted, we have some ground to make up there, and we need to continue to find creative solutions, especially right now. And so the council is fully committed to supporting not just this particular initiative, but many more moving forward to help sure we address those and address some of the literacy issues that Dr. McKnight mentioned too.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Kelly. And due to time constraints, we're going to have to go ahead and move on to the rest of this press conference. I do see additional questions for Dr. McKnight, but I'm sure you can reach out to her communications team to get those answered. Thank you so much, Dr. McKnight. Council President Albornoz, I'm going to go ahead and toss it back to you to continue with this press conference. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jordan. And thank you again, Dr. McKnight, for joining us today. That was very helpful and informative. And that partnership and alliance between the council, the Board of Education, and the entire MCPS infrastructure is critical and never more important than now. So I'll now move on to just a couple of news and notes. We are resuming our full council sessions tomorrow in person, and we look forward to having everyone back. I'll just note, obviously, there were a number of things that occurred while we were on recess in August. And while I won't go into a lot of detail, I do want to acknowledge and thank the Board of Elections, the staff and the volunteers for carrying out a very methodical and historical primary season this year. Obviously, there was understandably a lot of focus on the election that resulted in the Democratic primary winner being our current county executive by just a few dozen votes. But I think that process spoke to the importance of our Board of Elections and the systems that we have here in place in Montgomery County, and that our residents can feel assured and confident that we have a very strong election system infrastructure here, both in Montgomery County, but also across the entire state of Maryland. There were, as there always are, lessons learned because of the unprecedented nature of the number of mail-in ballots that came in this last cycle. And we will be working with the Board of Elections to provide any support necessary to help ensure that they have all the resources they need as we go on to the general election in November. But I once again want to thank them for all of their efforts on behalf of the entire council. I'll note also that tomorrow we have two proclamations, one recognizing African Heritage Month, as well as one commemorating National Infant Mortality Awareness Month. The African Heritage Month's commemoration will be led by Council Members Jawando and Rice, and the National Infant Mortality Awareness Month proclamation will be led by Councilmember Friedson. We will be receiving a briefing tomorrow on Thrive 2050 and the work that was done over the summer to expand on the recommendations that were made in the racial equity and social justice analysis. We did hire, as everyone will recall, a consultant that helped ensure that we expanded our reach into communities that felt they had not been given an appropriate opportunity to provide voice to a document that we all recognize is important and has significant implications for the county moving forward. And so we look forward to receiving that briefing, and that will help dictate what our next steps will be and hopefully moving forward with the passage of Thrive before the end of this particular council. We will also be receiving a Purple Line briefing, and specifically we'll be receiving information on the new agreement that was reached between the Maryland Transit Solutions, the contractor hired to complete the construction on the Purple Line, and an updated timeline for the project. I'll also note that this evening, the Department of Health and Human Services is hosting a town hall on monkeypox. This follows in a series of town halls that the Department of Health and Human Services has been carrying out on this very important topic. I want to once again thank Council Vice President Glass for his leadership and his partnership with the Department of Health and Human Services. Tonight's town hall will be conducted entirely in Spanish. As I said, this follows in a series of town halls, and I encourage all of you to help please promote that event this evening, which you can find out about on the council's website. And this will be an important opportunity for the community to find out more information regarding a topic that is of concern to many. With that, I will now turn it over to Mr. O'Donnell to provide a COVID update and just general public health update. And then I will be happy to answer any questions that the media may have. Mr. O'Donnell, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Okay, I'll be sharing a little bit of data to give you the update on COVID, as well as cover just some brief updates on our monkeypox or MPX response. The biggest update, many of you have heard already about an updated booster that has been approved by the FDA, the CDC. These boosters carry protection for both the what they call the ancestral strain or the original versions of COVID, as well as they now include protection against the Omicron strain, particularly the BA4 and 5, which is the most recent variant that we've experienced. We believe within public health that this will offer broader immunity, not only for the strains that have circulated recently, but hopefully for future variants if they continue along the Omicron way. The other big change is that everyone is eligible for this booster as long as it's been 2 months since a previous booster or since they completed their original series. This comes in both manufacturers of the mRNA vaccine, Pfizer and Moderna, have versions of this. The Pfizer is available to anyone 12 and older. The Moderna is available to anyone 18 and older. So again, if you're an older adult who's already received 2 boosters, and it's been 2 months, you can get this booster. If you've received one booster or haven't gotten a booster yet, but finished your first 2 doses, again, as long as it's been 2 months, you qualify for this booster. So the big question is, where can I find these? We realize it's still in the process of being rolled out to a lot of providers. Within the county, we've received a very limited amount of the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, but we have looked at both the state, this is the state search engine. There's also a federal search engine, vaccines.gov, and they show lots of locations around Montgomery County and in neighboring jurisdictions where you can get these boosters. This was a search specifically for the updated boosters. Again, this is from the vaccines.gov, which is the CDC website. You can see there's lots of places. You can select the specific vaccine you'd like and find that. We've went through very quickly last week the available updated booster vaccine that the county received. We had that available at our clinics. Additionally, we got some in on Friday, and we partnered with Care for Your Health, which is one of the clinics that we work with through the Latino Health Initiative. And they were able to go out and give boosters at the Salvadoran Festival on Sunday. So again, we're hoping to raise awareness that there is a new booster out there. It adds an additional layer of protection, and we're strongly urging people to find places where this booster is available. But again, cautioning the county has a limited number of appointments with these, but please look at the different sites, the different pharmacies. Lots of this vaccine is available out there. Looking at our statistics in the county, our case numbers have come down significantly over the last month. We're down to about 120 cases per 100,000 as identified through PCR testing. You can see the hospitalization rates have come down as well. And this puts us in the low community level as the CDC defines it. Again, we track hospitalizations not only at our primary hospitals, but also at the alternate care site in Tacoma Park. We've seen those numbers come down at both sites. We'll update this chart before tomorrow's council briefing. This is the data as of yesterday's census with the hospitals. Very often it goes up a little bit on Mondays as individuals often like to wait until after the weekend before going to see medical care. One thing I do want to share, I know in the past we've shared this at a number of different briefings, and these are our county numbers for hospitalization rates by vaccinated versus unvaccinated, and death rates by vaccinated with boosters and unvaccinated. And we're often asked, how come we can't share those hospitalization rates about individuals who have been boosted? And there was a study published yesterday. Our national researchers at the CDC put out an updated study. They looked at more than 250 hospitals across 13 states, and just since Omicron happened. And what they're reporting now is, compared to individuals who have been boosted, unvaccinated adults are 10.5 times more likely to be hospitalized for COVID-19. Those with just a primary series but have not been boosted are also 2.5 times more likely to be hospitalized than those who have been boosted. And that's pretty compelling information about how important it is to get a booster shot. The protection your initial shots gave you is pretty strong, but it does wane over time. So we strongly encourage boosters. Additionally, of those who are being hospitalized, there are some differences between those who are unvaccinated and vaccinated. Those who are vaccinated are by far more likely to be older. The average age of a vaccinated person hospitalized is 70 years old versus the average age of an unvaccinated person who's hospitalized with COVID is 58. And again, someone who's vaccinated, if they are hospitalized, they're much more likely to have multiple underlying conditions. So again, there are people who get significantly ill from COVID who have been vaccinated, but they tend to be much older and have lots of other underlying conditions as well. So we share this to help individuals understand why it's important to be vaccinated. why it's important to get your booster when you're eligible. Moving over to monkeypox, we wanted to share that the CDC is publishing data on the case trends that you can that gets updated, I think weekdays, and you can see from this data the case trends have been slowly going down across the United States, but it's still being transmitted. We're still concerned about this, and we're still working to vaccinate individuals. Looking at the cases in Maryland, they are now at 571 cases across Maryland. And our state colleagues have put up a dashboard now where you can track data by county. If there's been at least 10 cases in a county, they'll share the county specific data. In Montgomery County, we have 69 cases. So this dashboard's updated weekly. In that last week, there were 73 new cases in Maryland and 5 new cases in Montgomery County over the previous 7 days. You can also see we're tracking on the demographics as well of the cases within the state. We've begun tracking on the demographics within our county as well, and we will look to share some of that information tomorrow at the Board of Health meeting. Just want to remind folks that we are in collaboration with our colleagues across the state, still focusing on the first 2 priorities. That is anyone with a confirmed exposure, to try to get them vaccine within the first 4 days of that exposure to reduce symptoms, maybe avoid symptoms altogether. And the second priority is individuals who may have had an exposure over the last 14 days. And our pre-registration list that we've encouraged residents to sign up for, especially if they believe they might be in that second category where they're at higher risk. We've moved through everyone who has met that criteria for extended post-exposure and offered them a vaccination at some point for this week. We're working to identify individuals who haven't come in to give them another opportunity, as well as working with the state to expand the criteria so we can begin vaccinating a wider group of people for this. Just to, again, show across the entire United States, they are tracking on time series the vaccine administration, and you can see a high point in early to mid-August. We continue to have a large number of, we have sufficient vaccine right now to see more people, as well as start to bring back individuals for their second doses. And again, we have more people signing up through pre-registration. They haven't yet met the lower risk criteria, but we're hoping to expand that criteria soon. We continue to offer multiple services for folks who come in for the vaccination, both opportunities for COVID testing, COVID boosters. We also do sexual health screening at Dennis Avenue. And if an individual is interested, we're happy to make that available to them. As our council president mentioned, we will have a town hall this evening. We're very happy that we have a number of our clinicians from our Latino Health Initiative participating as well. We look forward to answering questions from the community and helping, again, to raise awareness of the risk factors for monkeypox, how to protect yourself, when to know to get testing, and again, how to get a vaccination if you do qualify. Those were the updates I have for you all today, but happy to answer any questions or turn it over to Lindsay, or to Jordan, I'm sorry, if we have some more items we'd like to cover.
Great, thank you so much, Sean. So as he said, if you guys have any questions, any reporters have questions, you can go ahead and note that in the chat. We do have some questions rolling in now pertaining to this. So I'll go ahead and open it up. We have 2 questions from Milagro Melendez with Univision. I'm gonna go ahead and toss this to Marcela. She has questions in Spanish for Council President Albornoz. Marcela?
Thank you, Jordan. The first question says, número 1, seguridad en las escuelas. ¿Cuáles son las medidas de precaución que se están tomando para salvaguardar la seguridad de los estudiantes?
Bueno, gracias por esa pregunta. Y eso sigue siendo una de las metas más importantes de este año. Y el sistema escolar ha trabajado con el Departamento de Policía para coordinar un esfuerzo para asegurar que en cada colegio sí hay seguridad que es necesario, especialmente en este momento de tiempo, y eso sigue adelante.
And the second question says, se ha visto un aumento de muertes por sobredosis de drogas entre los adolescentes, especialmente con el fenfanil. ¿Hay algún plan para contrarrestar?
Sí, espera un segundo. Sean, I'm going to tag team this one with you. The question was in the rising cases of fentanyl and some of the challenges that we are facing with overdoses here in our community. And I know this obviously is very much a public health issue, and this happens to be the month where we recognize overdose awareness and ensure that we provide all the support necessary. I attended a very powerful annual vigil that just occurred last week, where we provided a candlelight vigil recognizing all the loved ones that were lost to overdose. And we have to make sure that we take all steps necessary to prevent that and to support the families by eliminating the stigma, but also ensuring that we provide the support that we need. But Sean, if you wanted to elaborate in any way from the public health perspective, that'd be helpful.
Well, you're correct. It's a tragic situation and a public health concern. It's well beyond a concern across Maryland, as it's been an emergency with the number of fentanyl overdoses. We do work very closely with our colleagues in HHS who are tracking the number of cases and working on both outreach and intervention programs. I'd be happy to try to get more information about some of those specific programs, but what we have done is leveraged our syndromic surveillance hospital programs so that we can track the number of individuals who show up within hospitals or calls with our fire rescue partners that related to overdoses, because we know not all of those calls, all of those incidences would be reported otherwise. So we do share that again with our behavioral health and crisis service partners who work on the programming for it. And again, I'd be happy to get some more information about what we're doing there.
Y Marcela, en español rápido, este mes es un mes sumamente importante porque anota todas las familias que han sido afectados en esta crisis. Y sabemos que solo toma un píldora para que una persona pueda perder su vida. El Departamento de Salud y Servicios Humanos sigue ofreciendo no solo servicios y programas, pero también, como dijo el señor O'Donnell, está trabajando con los hospitales en una alianza para asegurar que tenemos información que nos puede ayudar en esta lucha.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcela, and thanks again, Milagros, for the questions. Up next, we have Kate Ryan from WTOP with questions for Council President Albornoz. Hey, Kate.
Hey, thank you very much for this. Council President, I had a quick question. You mentioned the Purple Line. I know there's going to be discussion about that tomorrow. I know that people are excited to see that there had been a labor agreement that now allows things to move forward. But what are constituents telling you about the progress that's been made so far and what problems? You know, I know earlier we talked to, and I want to say like this was last year, small businesses along that route that have suffered. What's your sense of the progress here? What are you hearing from constituents, and what would you tell people who are skeptics of this whole thing?
Sure, I certainly understand that skepticism, and I guess what we have heard mostly is relief that there is a path forward, because what we had been hearing for more than 2 years was frustration at its stalling, because we've seen these large transportation projects erected in people's backyards and no action or nothing happening, which has obviously disrupted traffic flow. And so There is, I think, just generally speaking, relief that we are moving forward, and we will receive a more specific update tomorrow on the timeline. And so I'll be in a better position to respond to that question after we receive the briefing. But we are elated that this is moving forward. Disappointed it took this long, but there are signs of progress.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. That actually looks like all the questions I see here in the chat from reporters. Reporters, if you have any other questions for Council President Albornoz or Sean O'Donnell from DHHS, go ahead and note that in the chat. Kate, I see you have one more.
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted to ask you about, and Council President Albornoz, I don't think you were along for there was a walk along that Andrew Friedson, Councilmember Friedson did, I think it was Friday, with Maryland State Highway along Old Georgetown Road. What are your concerns about both pedestrian and bike safety along that particular roadway?
Well, that particular stretch, and too many of the stretches in Montgomery County, including River Road, where we lost tragically another bicyclist just a few weeks ago, are an indication that although this has received a great deal of attention from a policy perspective as well as a budget perspective, we need to do more, and we need to do it as quickly as possible. And it must be done in cooperation with State Highway, acknowledging the complicated nature of the intersection of a number of these roads and highways across the county. But we cannot let this tragedy bestow another family. And we are aggressively moving forward and taking a number of steps, but we owe it to everyone and our community to make sure that we are doing everything that we can. So I do want to thank Councilmember Friedson for spearheading that effort. And he was joined by State Senator Susan Lee, as well as delegates Kelly, Corman, and Love from our wonderful District 16 team. And this does represent an important milestone in that we are moving forward with a pedestrian master plan. And of course, we are moving forward with ensuring that we have much more bicycle safety in our community as well. But all of these efforts have to be accelerated because this just can't continue.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the extra question, Jordan.
Of course, no problem, Kate. Any other reporters have any last minute questions for Council President Albornoz or Mr. Sean O'Donnell before we close out? Going once, going twice, 3 times? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and toss it back to you, Council President Albornoz, to close us out. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jordan. And again, we will be resuming these on a weekly basis. So we will be back on next Monday. And we look forward to any follow-up questions after our council session this week, as is always the case. Any member of the media and our public can contact each of our offices individually, and we will be more than happy to provide responses in hopefully a timely manner. Thank you all very much and have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.